Hello. This is a report for my game that I wanted to make, just like Just Dance, where you have to hit certain poses at a certain time, and it did not go as well as I planned. I have begun to be able to see what angle an arm is at, and I think I should be able to implement phase 1 of understanding movement. That's like the elbows and the knees, and to get some basic movement from that. What I failed at was making a fun game that you have to hit poses at a certain time, so the whole point. But here are some problems that I have that you might have as well. First, I had trouble getting the right angle of the elbow, making it hard to convert my idea of a good human-readable format of the body pose. And I tried two ways, and both of them had their shortcomings, but one did get me a lot further. Second, I still could be doing it the wrong way. I don't know how I really want to solve my problems. And third, I made some arbitrary compromises to make things work instead of figuring out correctly, which might hurt me in the future. So back at that first point, I want to get the angle of the elbow first, and I can get that by using some vector math from ChatGPT, cosine arc -1 something, and then get the angle. But that has some anatomical inaccuracies. So when you're closing your elbow all the way, so you're flexing your elbow, it should be about 30 degrees. And with the pose model, that brings your elbow in a little bit, and so we're getting somewhere around 75-ish degrees being the smallest it could be, which I was trying to convert into something a little better. So like 75 to 140 degrees is what I was getting, and I wanted to change that to 30 to 80 degrees so that I could get that. And I didn't like doing that, and it wasn't very accurate either. And that's where I'll figure out more things in the second method. So I did something even simpler in this next method. I would get the distance from the wrist to the shoulder and then get distance from that. And this works more than the first method. But then I started running into problems with using the pose detection model, like how it can mess up the 3D, because I'm trying to make this a more 3D so that way I can copy a video of somebody without having them have to face the camera or something like that. Now, there was certain poses that made this extremely difficult while I was doing my testing, and I don't know exactly if they would be a common thing that would be a problem. So, for example, I'd hold my elbow to my abdomen and have my wrist at a 90-degree angle, and with just rotating around my center, I would go from 30 degrees to 180 degrees, and I wasn't even close to that. But I did like this method, just needs a little bit more work. I did think of a method that would be a little bit unpredictable. Maybe it would work better. What if I used a neural net and just put in the coordinates of the elbow, the wrist, and the shoulder, and then just had it spit out a degree? I think that would be an interesting idea. Alright, and then to my second point. What if using pose detection model is not the right way? What if there was a different model, like maybe a body segmentation or something like that, where you could kind of look at it a little bit more differently? Let's say, for example, you have a picture of an elbow and you want to see what angle it's at, so you just use an edge detection and you find that angle. I think that would be a quicker way, but you'd also need a lot more things with that one, so I'm not sure about that either. Alright, and then the third point, where I was talking about I made arbitrary compromises. I don't like using magic numbers just to get things done. For example, I know calibration is a very important thing. My 3D printer has a calibration where it has a homing pattern just so it knows where everything is and it doesn't run to the end of its length and try to push further without causing problems. So I know it's definitely a thing that it's a very professional thing to have. What I didn't like was trying to just make it work. I'll just put some numbers in there and that will make it work. And I didn't like that because I still want to expand on this. I think if you're just doing a one-time project, yeah, that makes sense. Just get her done, and just that would be very appropriate. But since I'm trying to make something that I will expand on in the future, I don't want to do that.